So, hey, welcome everybody to our Local is Global panel this afternoon. I'm really pleased that you came down. I know it's starting to get exhausting towards the end of a conference, so thank you so much for coming. It is my absolute pleasure to be joined on this panel by three writers from smaller territories that are doing really well, which is so lovely. And I know a lot of the local and global concept has been discussed a lot in this conference. There's been a lot of talk about Netflix and all of that. So I'm going to try and talk about, hi guys, come on in. I'm going to try and talk about the craft implications for these guys once we've also talked about what they're doing. So I'm going to quickly there's so many people coming in the back. I'm just going to wait. I hope you people have got notes. Come on in. So you can see, no one's laughing at that joke. Okay, or something funny. Just imagine that it's funny, and you'll get through it. Stop laughing. Okay, so my name is Catherine Burnett, and I am a screenwriter from New Zealand. And to my left, I have Tarja Kulama. How's that? Yeah. Not bad. There's a lot of comedy in me pronouncing all these names. Who is from Finland. And next to Tarja is Meta Hino, who is from Denmark. And then, and this is the big challenge for me, I'm so sorry in advance, is Margrethe Odenovstik. Is that not bad? You might like to say your own last name, because I mangled that so appallingly.
Okay, Örnólfsdóttir.
Thank you. Yeah. That's great. Apologies. So, what I would like to do is, rather than do a whole lot of talk about these ladies' bios, I'm just going to get them to talk about the most current and successful project that they have that has done well globally. And then we're going to start digging into how they came to that, how writing local stories has impacted on them creatively, and also how they came about, really. So we'll just start with you. Jump on in.
Yeah, the show or the series I'm currently doing is called Invisible Heroes. It's set in 1973 in Chile, Santiago de Chile. There was a young Finnish diplomat who was sent there to promote trade between Finland and Chile. And he made friends and made deals, but then suddenly one night there was Pinochet's military coup. And there were soldiers on the street, and his house was filled with refugees. So it was the Cold War era, and our government said that you can't help anyone because we can't take sides. Finland is a neutral country, and if we take sides, we lose the trust of Soviet Union, and we have this 1,300 long border with Russia or the Soviet Union, so we don't want any arguments. So he had this big decision what to do, to let the military kill his friends or just hide them. And he ended up saving over 2,000 refugees by getting them to the DDR embassy and helping them to Europe. So that's the story about the series. It's 6 times 1 hour.
Great, so 6-part, fantastic. Yeah. Meta?
That was shocking. My latest show was for TV2 Networks, like the local broadcaster in Denmark, and it was called Splitting Up Together, and it's sort of an edgy comedy drama, 8 episodes, 30 minutes, and it's about a couple that decide to split up, and then they can't sell their house, so they have to live in the same house, and then every second week one of them has to live in the basement, and the other one has to live with their 2 kids in the house. And it's a one location, it's a one camera production, but one location in all the episodes, so you never leave the house. So it's a man-woman, a lot of quarreling and romance and loneliness sort of show.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
Wonderful. Thank you. It sounds fantastic. And that show has been not just remade in different territories, so it's been sold in different territories, also been remade in different territories. So we're going to be looking at a couple of trailers from different territories of the same show, which is just interesting and just for fun. Margrethe?
Yeah. I have a series called Prisoners. Well, it's called Fangar in Icelandic, which is about the women's prison in Iceland, which is, of course, because Iceland is a very small country, then the women's prison is tiny. It has the maximum of 8 prisoners serving at a time. And I think, usually it's only, on average, it's like 2.5 or something like that. So, we exaggerated a little bit in the series, so we have like 8 women. And, Prisoners was, it's on Netflix now, and it's been shown in all the Nordic countries and in Poland and Spain. And it's accessible in America and Canada through Amazon Prime on the Sundance
Great.
TV channel. So it's gone really far, even though it's a very, very local thing.
Yes.
We are writing the second season of The Prisoners. And then I was also a writer of the second season of Trapped, which is now in post-production.
Right, and that's a crime drama, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So tell me, for all of those projects, was there a local broadcast investment at the beginning, or were these created as projects that were automatically destined for the international market, and they went to the international market for funding, or did they kind of start with local broadcaster funding? Any of them?
Mine started really only as a local broadcaster.
Right.
And because it's very cheap to make, so it was like they just ordered all of it, so they didn't need funding because it's 2 characters in a house.
Yeah.
It's really cheap.
That's so smart, can I just say? How smart is that?
Yeah, exactly. So no
Okay.
international
None
funding
for
at
you.
all.
Margaret, what about you?
We pretty much are dependent on pre-sales for the funding. So we have a broadcaster who is commissions the work and then puts, it's maybe 10-20% of the budget comes from the broadcaster, and then we have if it's the national broadcaster, it's usually the other Nordic broadcasters also put some development money and also buy it. And then, the Film Fund, the Nordic Film Fund, European Film Fund, and then the rest is pre-sales. So it's become the way we have to do it.
Yes.
It's the same in Finland, the same model with the commission from the public channel and then the others joining in.
Yeah, it's the same in New Zealand, actually. So for most TV shows, for sure. So I just thought it was interesting, given we're all from little countries, it's so interesting that that's how it goes. I've got a question later about how we think domestic funding or local funding can help create or further international projects, but before we get to that, I would just like to ask the question, which may be a little bit, it feels like a stupid question, but I'm coming up with it, so I'm going to live with that. So do you think there's really any difference when you're writing, is there any difference between how you write a show for the local and international market? Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, you have to be very careful to write to your own audience once you're in this international project, because when you start, there immediately are questions and demands of turning it into something else. So if you have notes from 5 producers, you have to really know what you want to do.
Yes.
And as I was writing the Finnish 70s, I wanted it to feel the Finnish 70s and not like Chile, and to feel the difference.
Sure. Can you give me an example? Is there an example that jumps to mind that's something that you had to protect?
For example, we had this very strong president for tens and tens of years, and to have the atmosphere in the series that was so typical of that time was important for me, for example.
Oh, thank you. So what about you? How do you feel when you're writing something? Is there any difference in your head when you're writing it? You think about no, I'm the same.
No, I don't think about it at all.
Yeah.
Maybe I would if it were like big international productions, but I really I like to write small, so it doesn't cost anything. So I don't have to worry about that.
I think for the writer, as a writer, there is no difference, because the writer is just focusing on the story and the characters and making that all work and doing his best to make that worth the audience's time and attention. But I'm sure there is a lot of, in my experience, it has affected everybody else. Like you're getting notes from producers, from broadcasters, from other people that they are afraid that the foreigners will not understand this or that.
Sure.
And then also there is sometimes I feel like people are trying to make me into a tourist bureau for Iceland.
Right. Yes.
That and so it's completely. So there is some kind of pressure in that sense, but I think we fight it. And there is also, I mean, now we are working with co-producers from other countries, and sometimes there are cultural differences that you have debates, and it's really hard to explain sometimes things that are just so much in your national DNA that this has to be this way because, well, I can't explain it. That's just the way it is here.
You don't want to make compromises, but then again, it's about communications. So you want the series to tell the story you want it to be. So then you also have to listen to the notes to see if it's there that you want to tell. And in our series, we were two writers. The other writer was Manuela Infante from Chile. So she was the one who could go into the skins of the Chilean characters. And then we could have the protagonists and the antagonist really up against each other, so that I could write the Finnish characters and she could write the Chileans and see what comes out of that conflict.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. That's great. So do you think there are key elements, and this again sounds like a really silly question, do you think there are key elements for a local show if it's going to find international flavour? What are and you can talk as long as you like about this, what are the things that you think absolutely have to be in a local show for it to have international appeal?
It absolutely has to mean something to you if you want to write an international thing, because it's just something that you can really tell about, communicate, whatever it is.
Relatable characters, I think that's the essence, especially for what I've done, and also if I engaged in something that's from a different country, it's the character work. It has to feel real, and it has to appeal to me as a person, and I have to reflect myself and my feelings in that character work. So I would say that would be the essence of a lot of drama that I like.
Great.
Well, I think it has to be believable for locally to be believable globally as well. As soon as you start to try to adjust to the global image, I mean, then you have something that is untrue.
Yeah. And do you feel that it starts to become diluted?
Sorry?
Starts to become diluted?
Yeah,
or,
and I mean,
compromised?
I've seen this happen. Well, not so much lately, but maybe 20 years ago, we were so frustrated to live in a country speaking a language that nobody understands, and not being able to make, big thriller movies or something like that. So there was actually people were thinking we should start making films in English, so they will travel. And then, the idea was to make some kind of a Hollywood movie in Iceland. And that would, of course, that would never work, and nobody would want to see that. And so we've become to understand that just doing the things locally well and with integrity is something that is interesting to the rest of the world. And that's also what we are interested in to see from other parts of the world. But we believe this is real.
Yeah, so niche is interesting to people. What a surprise. This is a challenge we have in New Zealand all the time, and for years, same thing. For decades, there's been we're only making stuff for the local market, so it has to be completely, sometimes ludicrously, New Zealand. And it made me laugh what you said about, somebody said about the tourism video for the country. It used to be like a selling positive in New Zealand that the landscapes are going to be in it. And I used to always think, I don't care. I care about the people that are wandering around inside the landscapes. And there were ridiculous things when I worked on where there would be whole scenes kind of created or shoved in to an episode just so we could kind of have some harbour shots. And I just go, maybe it's just me, but I thought it drove me crazy because this has nothing to do with the story at all. So do you have a sense of when you think about your project suddenly, or yours is different because it's a co-production, but do you have you other guys, did you have a sense of that this was going to be a show that was going to make it internationally? Or did you just go, we're just making it, doing it as well as we can, and then were you surprised that it was picked up internationally? Margaret, why don't we start with you?
Well, we kind of had the idea. We already had, we were sort of following the Nordic, the interest of Nordic television, like Danish and Swedish and Norwegian. And so we knew, and of course Trapped was maybe an icebreaker for us. So we knew that we had a shot and that we had something to offer. But for me it was very interesting to see that we could actually, make that interest with only the scripts. And that was something that was a very nice surprise, that they were actually just, people just actually interested in the story. And they didn't care if there was going to be an eruption there or beautiful landscapes or geyser or whatever. It was about the characters in the story. We had our hopes that it would travel, but when, for example, Netflix commissioned it, which was quite early on in the just with the first drafts of the script, that was the first show in Iceland that got that, and we were just blown away. We did not expect that.
That's so exciting.
How many were you writing the series?
2. Me and the director.
Cool, thank you.
Concerning my show, it was a really big surprise because it was a small, like a little experiment for the broadcaster.
Right.
So, and then it premiered at the Berlin Film Festival. So it was like a showcase, and then it had a lot of interest from other countries, and especially on the remake, which is really weird because everyone says that comedy doesn't travel. And then all of a sudden there were all of these people that could relate to the story and to the characters and my personal divorce, which was like the base of the story or the core of the story.
Love it. Totally love that.
Yeah. So it's been aired in numerous countries, and there's a Belgian remake that is actually really scary because it's a frame by frame remake.
Wow.
So it's like all the scripts and and the same music and the same title sequence. So it's just they've just replaced like hits with their own with their own famous actors. Yeah, it's the same. And then there's an American remake on ABC.
Wow.
And that's just huge there. Because
that's fantastic.
But they turned it into a romantic sitcom.
Right.
And mine was like divorce.
Dark and terrible.
Yeah, in a basement.
So all of this came about because it was at the festival and people saw it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because no one would have seen it if it didn't premiere there. Because there were screeners everywhere. So it gained a lot of interest, but it was just like this little thing on the side for a lot of people.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
So this seems like an opportune time to let's look at the trailers for some of the remakes of this show, which is splitting up together.
No, sorry.
Nope.
That's a different movie. That's not the show.
Oh, wasn't it? Sorry, what is it then?
This is it's because I wrote a feature film
Right.
that has been remade
Yes.
in Swedish and French.
Great.
So the trailers are first the Danish, the original, and then the remakes.
Great. Of which project?
It's called All Inclusive.
All inclusive.
Yes.
Great. My apologies. Okay, guys, let's run what we've got. This is the last call, hotline 1818. Okay.
Hej!
This is the Swedish.
Var är pappa? Han är död.
Oh, what's happened? Oh, all of them, please.
The Danish first.
Yeah, Danish first, if that's possible. Thank you. Thank you.
Far han skal ikke med alligevel. Det bliver kun os tre.
Hvad sker der?
Far, han er død.
Far er ikke død.
Nej,
Far er ikke død.
Far er død. Far er ikke død. Nej, det er jo bare for sjov. Mor og far skal skilles.
I'm Antonio Banderas.
You are Antonio Banderas?
No, Banderas. Mommy, don't move.
Jeg tænker bare, mor, hvor mange mænd hun scorer, hvis hun får skadet. Hvad er problemet? Hun er der en godt dag.
Så du bare, du er klar over, hvad det er for et nederlag, hun får, hvis hun går ind i aften. Jeg tror, at du skal passes op af alle mulige mænd, og der kommer ikke til at ske skid.
200?
Okay, I'll do your mother.
No, not you. Just kiss. One little kiss. That's it. Synes du, det er for meget, siger jeg?
Nej, ikke hvis du er fra Polen.
This was really a mistake. You have to cancel.
Du har haft samleje med mors nye fyr.
Hun tilgiver mig aldrig, hvis hun finder ud af det.
De der sydlandske mænd, de kan altid noget. Det er ikke bare noget, man siger.
Nej.
Altså, jeg er den eneste af os tre, han ikke har haft lyst til.
Du udstråler jo ikke ligefrem sex.
Du sidder og spiser de afsluttede olivensting.
Hey mor, hvad hedder?
Mor, hun har lige under ned med håndbruseren.
Ja, der sker virkelig noget dernede, når man bliver omkring i 40. Er det ikke rigtigt? Prøv nu kæft.
Se, hvordan det går.
Mand, hvor er jeg træt af dig. Ja, jeg tror lige, jeg tager en skyld. Jeg synes, jeg er selv. Jeg lover. I was in Malta Beach. Er det ikke fint?
This is the last call, hotline 1818.
Hej! Fint att du kunde komma. Var är pappa?
Han är död.
Va?
De ska bara skiljas.
Ska ni skiljas?
Man kan åka på historisk rundtur.
Eller bara ligga över poolen.
Kanske är fint att uppleva någonting också.
Det finns massage.
Ja, nu får jag nog betala för att någon ska röra vid mig.
Om du bara losa upp lite så skulle vi behöva dela ut nummerlappar. Ska vi gå ut ikväll så ska du få se att jag har rätt.
You want me to make your old mother feel good.
Only flirt, nothing else. One kiss. That's it.
Madame from the gentleman.
Det är ju inte till henne.
Ja, en helt underbar kväll med en helt underbar man som jag ska träffa igen imorgon.
Hon kommer bara bli ledsen och så kommer det vara mitt fel.
Det kanske bara är sex.
Alltså det kan någon glömma.
Jag är verkligen så jävla tråkig att man hellre skulle vilja ligga med en 60-åring än man kan få det här.
Jag har barn.
Hej.
It's my mother's birthday tomorrow. We are looking for kind of good times.
I have cocaine, heroin, ecstasy, movies.
No drugs.
So you want porn, right?
No.
Sympa avoir fermé la porte.
Tu as choisi ça comme tenue pour faire 11 heures d'avion. Tu comptes faire un peu de gogo dancing à bord?
Et quand c'est confortable, c'est moche. Qu'est-ce que tu fais?
Je suis pas prête, c'est trop tôt.
Allez, on lève les bras. Bien tendu. Et on actionne droite, gauche.
Moi, j'en peux plus de vos têtes de chien qui chient.
Maman, elle a 60 ans, je te rappelle.
Ouais, et alors? Quoi? Qu'est-ce qui se passe? À 60 ans, ça y est, t'es plus une femme. T'es Mamie Nova, c'est ça? Faut qu'on reste sur notre plan de départ, sauver maman. C'est pour ça qu'on est là, non?
Enfin, ça va pas, on va pas tuer papa.
Mais pas nous. Maman,
On est quand même parti avec une infirmière de 30 ans. Et on sait pas depuis combien de temps elle dure l'histoire. C'est quoi la suite? Je trouverais ça sympa que t'invites ma mère à danser. C'est quand même génial de passer de dépressive à sosie de Shakira. Par contre, on s'est bien compris, hein. Le reste, c'est keep out, forbidden, attention, chien méchant.
Je revois ce soir. Il m'invite à sortir.
Oh, pardon. Ça t'amuse de bercer d'illusions une femme de 60 ans?
Je croyais que le but, c'était de lui remonter le moral.
Voilà, c'est ça qu'elle tombe amoureuse d'un mec qui s'est fourré la moitié des dom-toms.
Rose, mais qu'est-ce que tu fais là?
Eh ben, comme vous. Je suis venue observer les planctons.
Vous croyez que le désir s'arrête quand on vieillit?
Maman, on ne veut pas avoir cette conversation avec toi. Pardon.
C'est très ironique d'ailleurs, vu que pour les hommes, ça devient plus compliqué.
Qu'est-ce qu'elle dit?
À partir de 50 ans, c'est l'empire des sens, mais dans un monde de demi-molle.
So the power of a great premise, right? It was great, and I'm sorry about that muck-up. So now that you guys have projects that and you have access to global market and you're already working in that sphere, does it change the way that you choose which projects to write? Deathly silence. Has it made you think about, I only want to write things that are absolutely for a global market?
No, because for me, I think the local market is still very, very important. And maybe we have an extreme situation in Iceland when we have something on, like a drama on the national broadcaster. Maybe 50 or 60% of the whole nation will watch it. And that's counting everyone, like infants and blind people and everyone, you know. So that is like very valuable for us, and that also gives you the kind of relationship and dialogue just with the rest of us, you know. And also I think we've come to realize that the appeal is actually something that is local, that is true for us. But on the other hand, I think it affects a little bit the way we write, and this is something that I fear. Because, for example, Trapped 2 and another series that I was writing recently, we were supposed to write in English, and then the scripts are translated back to Icelandic. And I've been fighting this because this is, I think it has an effect on just the way you write. You know, when you're thinking in another language, not your mother language, it will affect, your creatively. So then that's why I was really jealous when on the Netflix panel, where they said that they just wrote in their own language and then everything was translated, but we don't have that luxury.
It sounded pretty dreamy, I've got to say. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Cool.
When it gets busy, the producers can say that now we are in a hurry and you have to write the next version in English and maybe later translate it back. So you have to fight to keep your own language going.
Wow. Okay. But has it changed future projects for you, like the type of projects that you would work on?
I feel that some of the projects are born smaller and some larger, so you kind of want to do maybe a one-house thing after doing a big international project. So it's, for a writer, it's good change if you can have like both. That and both, if there's a possibility to fund them.
Fantastic.
It's really dangerous if you start thinking about the funding before you start thinking about the story, because there's a lot of examples of what we call Euro pudding. If you have like funding from Germany and Sweden and Norway, and then you have to have this character speak that language, and then you have to have 10% in this country, and I think that's sort of someone choking you. At the same time as you have to be creative, because you have to be creative on money's like money term, and with more money comes like more demands and more notes
and more compromise
and more compromises. So I think it's really. I mean, I would love to work on something on an international level, but they would just have to fund it after the script, and not in the process, because that's where I hear all these stories about like you have to have this and that.
Yes. So, as they say, when the money truck turns up, the compromises begin. Yeah, absolutely. So has it changed the way you write in any way? Going from working strictly local to something more global? In your career, I mean. I don't mean like, this year.
I don't think it has changed the way I write, but it certainly, gives you more opportunities. That you might have had some ideas that you knew that was impossible to get made in Iceland with the small market. But now there are, opportunities to do something that is maybe a little bit more complicated and
more ambitious.
More ambitious, yeah. Anyway, I mean, I think it's, and also, I mean, maybe the biggest change for us is when the language barrier sort of just went away.
Yes.
Because that was, of course, a huge change, that people are willing to see series with subtitled in a language that nobody understands.
Yeah. A few years ago, they said to us that no one will watch a Finnish speaking show.
Wow.
And now it's just subtitles.
Well, they were wrong. You showed them.
No, it hasn't changed at all. No. Yep. I just write what I like to write.
Yeah, as we do. Very good. So, do you think is there ever a type of story that can only be told for the local market, do you think? Is there ever a type of story or project that you think can only be told for a local market in your territory, do you think? Or do you think this is just completely blown open now and the whole world is interested in all things?
I think there are stories that there are very local stories, and there are, if you want to be like really, really local, it's like, if you tell a joke that only people in one town understand, but it's, and you have that in all countries, you have that in the culture, you have that in the language and the humor, and for example, children's stuff from Iceland doesn't travel very well.
Right.
The same with comedy. I mean, it's probably the same in the other Nordic countries as well. Somehow that's like very, very local. And yeah, and then maybe we're wrong. Then maybe somebody picks it up and then thinks it's wonderful. But you can never really know before.
No.
I mean, you can never know what the national audience will like. And if you're going to write a script thinking, well, the foreigners will really, really like that, you will be wrong. And you're always surprised what makes them laugh, what they like and what they don't understand. It's just something that you can't calculate. So let's not even think about it, it's just right.
Thank you.
You have to trust your instincts so that you'd know what you want to do and not second guess what others want to do.
Well, that would be a very slippery slope, I would think, because the international market is broad and varied. So how could you please all, right? Impossible.
I think that maybe stories about local heroes, or if because some countries are very, very proud of one local hero, or this event, or like a football game or a bank robbery that went famous for 10 years or something like that. If you make those stories, they become extremely local. Because all small countries, or all countries in the world have their own local heroes, and we don't care about the others because we just want to, so that's the local stories that I don't think travel that well.
Sure.
And inventions, we're proud of like the Danes invented something, and I've pitched a project once, and then the executive said, but they have their own inventor, Norway, and their own inventor in Finland. They don't care about this invention at all. It's just you.
Yes.
So they have their own war heroes. Every country has the war heroes.
Yes, it's true. I guess the challenge in that case is if someone is really hell-bent on making that story, then finding the universality of that story about that unique individual person is the challenge as a writer, I guess. I'm thinking about you've been commissioned to do it. I'm not saying you've initiated it, but yeah. Sorry, carry on, Margaret. You were going to say something.
No, I was going to say that maybe the Danish TV series Borgen has sort of is a good example of something that nobody believed would ever travel outside of Denmark, even about Danish modern politics, and well, it was proven pretty wrong. So I think we can't really know.
No, and I find that fascinating that we actually don't know how it's going to be received, and I guess you never know, right? You put something into the world, you can never 100% know. Sorry, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say about Borgen that it's so wonderful that it stands on itself. There's no remake because you have to have the Danish politics or nothing at all if you watch it.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, shall we have some questions? Great. We've got a question at the back there.
Hi, I'm sorry. I just wanted to know if you talk about local, then is it just that we see a lot of global stories, like whodunits, drama, love, etc., that seems to be pretty global because it affects anybody in humankind, and the local in it is just like a mere kind of backdrop or set, and isn't the possibility of getting local, I think, at least 80% rooted in a certain mentality on how people would tackle such global problems? Or what is this specific local that is talked about now?
Interesting, jump in.
It's a very good idea or interpretation of locality, that you have the mentality in the person, that it's its own mentality, and you relate to that character and get into the flight with him or her and get the sense of the specific locality of that area too.
I have to say, in my experience, watching programs that have come from anywhere in the world that I'm not from, and I'm someone, English is my first language, I find the specific details and specificity really engaging. Like, even if the story itself is I understand this story, I've seen this story before, I love the specific detail so much. Like, it really appeals to me, and I think a lot of people feel that way. But anyway, if you want to answer that question, guys.
And it might even be refreshing to see a Polish forest, for example, instead of Finnish forest. So you at least spend 1 hour in a Polish forest.
Yeah.
Okay, may I add up on that, just another one? I want to follow up on that, but you're talking a lot about production detail and not so much about writing right now. Because, this is something that you probably as a writer could draft in, and you write this is a forest in Finland. But still, how can you as a writer enforce the locality? I mean, I saw this TV series, the English name was called Border Town. It's about, it's a crime story in Finland. Yeah. And what I really liked about that was this certain mentality kind of approach to it. So that there I saw the writer, there I could really feel the writing.
Yeah, thank you. I'll tell the message to the writers in Finland. They'll be happy. But
Please do so.
Yeah, one of my teachers told me that in 40 years, every fiction is documentary. And there you have also the fact that we are writing big fiction, but we are living in this time and this place in Earth. And so we can't avoid that the zeitgeist is in us. So it's finally documentary.
That's interesting. And the question was also about how, as writers, you can implant location and locality and all of that stuff. So do you want to talk to that? Like, I mean, I know I have my own thoughts, but I'm just the moderator. So carry on.
But I think also, I mean, we are local. If you live somewhere, you were brought up somewhere, you don't even think about that you're writing something local. You are just writing about your world, and you're not even thinking global, local. It's just you are writer and you are using the tools that you have. And I don't I don't really want to think about it that I'm doing something Icelandic, because that's just who I am. And what we have in Icelandic culture would be nothing without the language. If we didn't have our own language, there wouldn't be anything that you could actually call Icelandic culture. So I think we should not maybe be too hooked up on this. It's just we just do our best job.
I think that the more local we get, the more exotic it becomes, because then you really get like the feel of the writer or the director and all the characters in a specific situation that's very exotic to you. Like if I see a TV show from another European country or something, I'm so much there than if they were trying to adjust to me as the audience. So yeah, so local is exotic.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and if you follow the politics, you can see that the main force is change. So that anything that is new is exciting.
That's true.
Also, one point is that you have something you have something special when you live in a place and you are born in a place. You have some knowledge that you wouldn't have if you weren't born there. And sometimes I've been working with writers from other countries, and then there are nuances where people just don't understand things or have different ideas. For example, on Trap 2, we were in the room with a British writer and a French story editor and a German, with all the old empires, German producers, and they were talking about a certain character and said, the wife of the farmer. And I was like, there is nothing in Iceland called the wife of the farmer. It's like, you can't, what is that? And they were like, what do you mean? Yeah, because a farmer, if you have a man and a woman living on a farm, they're both the farmer.
Right.
They are the farmers. You never say the wife of the farmer or the husband of, So there are small things like that you can't really... this is only if you live in the place you just know this.
Thank you. We have another question right there at the front there.
In German television, the Sweden is very popular. Like in the second channel, there's a whole series that plays exclusively in Sweden. And it's all about Sweden, but the people don't speak Swedish, it's German, it's a romantic fantasy. Actually, the Swedish television did a documentary about the Germans coming to Sweden, about the particular picture that they like and appreciate about Sweden. So when we come to locality, this would be a question, how much this, as you somehow said, you have to feature your own country. I talked yesterday to a German writer who's negotiating with Netflix, and they are interested in her material because it plays in Germany, but then they told her it's not German enough. And she had to inquire, basically the fantasy of the commissioning editor, what he wanted to get to. And we of course know, as Germans, when we talk mainly to Americans who give the money, it's either Third Reich or maybe East Germany, or, and this is this case, it's Grimm's fairy tales. So she got signaled the metaphor of the fairy tale and she has to adapt, and then it's German enough. And the first German TV series that was shot for Netflix was far more popular abroad than in Germany because of the fantasy it delivered. It had to do with the woods and with the melancholic people and nuclear power or whatever was going on. Most of the Germans did not really appreciate it, and the ones who appreciated it got a signal from Hollywood that it was popular there, and then they appreciated it as well. But the German producer told me he was in Hollywood, and the taxi driver would talk to him about this TV series. This is one point. Another point has to do with the intellectual. The Romanian film is extremely popular among intellectuals and connoisseurs and film critics. Actually, we consider in the moment the Romanian film the best film probably in Europe. And people know it. but not in Romania. They're not interested. And the same was the case, let's say, for an Indian filmmaker like Sajjad Ray, who's internationally famous, one of the greatest filmmakers of the world considered. But the people inside India, even at the film school that is called after his name, they cannot connect properly, so you somehow think he had another audience than the Indian audience, though he used all the Indian life to communicate.
Situation. Can we have another question? There's one up the front, just in here. Thanks.
I have a question for you, Tarja. Tarja. Thank you. Your project. It was your idea to write this story of the Finnish ambassador, and then you found a co-producer in Chile, and then I'd really like to know how the Chilean writer came on board, and did you have any say in who you got to work with from Chile and how that relationship developed?
This is based on a true story, so there was a book. It was a story that was hidden for 40 years, and then there came a book, but nobody read it. It was just as silent as the history was. But then there was a new commissioner in our public broadcaster who had read the book and wanted to make the series. So he commissioned it from me. And then he found a Chilean production company, and they found the writer who had been a theater writer, never done a TV series before. But they trusted her, and then we met and we made the outline together. So it was a lucky co-production. We got together well, but it could have been something else too, because they chose the writer. I didn't have any say in it.
If you hadn't gotten along during the outline, do you think they might have switched things up and found another writer, or the two of you would have had to work it out?
There wasn't so much time, so I would have made it just more myself, or there wouldn't be time for another writer coming in. Yeah, so I wanted to keep her in.
Thank you. And we've got a question right there, just about 4 rows back. Thank you.
My question is to all of the panelists, actually. So, in India, when we did our show, Sacred Games, we were very conscious that we are really trying to tell a local story, but we were also conscious that we can adopt the way that we tell the story. We were drawing from what we had seen in international shows. So, did any of you feel that mounting your very local stories onto new methods that you're seeing outside your locale, did you find that dialogue in your journey so far? And is it something that has helped or stood against the visions that you originally come at it with?
Yeah, there were points when it was very difficult to present the situation in the 70s in Finland for a Chilean young writer, because there are things that I have to explain, but then again, I don't want to explain too much. So it was a real test of what is the drama we need and what is just the context that you can leave out.
Cool. What about you guys?
Well, as you all know, we did not invent television in Iceland. We had to learn how to do it by watching what others are doing, and then trying to copy what we liked, and then trying maybe to find our ways of doing it as well, because we are doing everything on very low budget. So I think we've looked a lot to American television and to Danish television, maybe mostly, and try to adapt things and then the way to tell the story. So yes, I think still it's a local story, but of course the format and the
the way we tell the story is something that is and we are, of course, we are influenced by the development of television and how stories are being told. So we are following on that, of course.
Thank you. So, Amita, did you have anything to add to that?
No.
No. So I'm just interested, but thank you for that question, because it made me think, in New Zealand, certainly when I'm sitting around with all my writer chums, of which there are many, we constantly talking about international comparables. So before there was great stuff coming out of Denmark, we were constantly talking about TV shows that were coming out of the UK and the US, and now we talk about Nordic noir, all of that. And so do you find when you are first coming up with an idea or thinking about the beginning of a premise that you start using international comparables?
Yes.
Yes.
I have something to add.
Yeah.
No, yes. Of course, it depends on the genre you're working in, but every time, when I see something that's really inspiring, I'm like, fuck, they already did the show that I was going to do. So it's out there. Yes. But then, because you only have the voice you have, so you have to give it your personality. But of course, it's not illegal to
be inspired by.
Be inspired by, exactly. Yeah. So right now, I'm actually, because I want to change the scenery of what I'm doing. So I'm working in Sweden right now, doing a crime drama. But and because I've never done that before, I just have like these 4 other shows that I keep getting inspired by.
Yes. Yeah. I've got those. They're like recorded on my Skybox at home, where I go, that was a great pilot.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome.
And it's an important evolutionary step that you have to know what's
Absolutely.
going on and add something to that, because it's the art form developing all the time.
Absolutely, yeah, it's exciting. It's true. So we've got time for probably jump in. Yes.
I think also the audience has become sort of an expert on television.
Yes.
It's like every person you meet knows a lot, and they are watching so many shows, and so it's really demanding and very challenging that you are writing for people that are just very, very up to date on what's happening in
the audience is very
globally,
cine literate. Absolutely.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
When I wrote Splitting Up Together, I had because I really liked the show called Togetherness and a show called Married, and we hadn't done like the 30-minute couple dramedy in Denmark before, so I had pictures of the main characters on my whiteboard, and then when they did a remake on ABC, they sent me who they wanted to cast, and it was like the pictures that I've had on my whiteboard. So they were casting the same actresses. So it was like, am I remaking you, or you?
Yes.
Who is it? All like just one? It's
like, is your house bugged?
Yeah, that
Has
was
your house
spooky.
been bugged?
Yeah. So I actually managed to. Yeah. So they remake my remake of their inspiration.
So screenwriters really, and this won't surprise anybody, we've kind of developed our own little international language when we're talking about developing stuff, and of course that stuff's really useful when you're pitching, right? Yeah. It's a New Zealand version of this, or it's a Finnish version of that. It's cool. Hey, look, we've probably got room for one more question, and then I have to stop this, although we could just keep talking about craft forever. So one more question, if there's anyone desperate to jump in. No one. Alrighty, well look, I would like to thank my panel so much for that. It's really interesting, and I feel we could just carry on talking, and perhaps we will have a wine. It's my pleasure. Alrighty, thank you.